As Yemeni forces battle each other and as a Saudi US coalition bombs Yemen daily, I'll be speaking with Ali Ahmed. He's a citizen of Saudi Arabia, a former political prisoner, and currently the executive director of the Gulf Institute, which is based in Washington. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, sir.
Well, let me start with a dumb question. Have Yemeni forces attacked Saudi Arabia?
No, they have not. In fact, Yemen has not shot a single bullet at the Saudi border or government. This is an
So,
unprovoked attack.
so what's the reason that Saudi Arabia thinks it can form a coalition and bomb Yemen?
The Saudi monarchy for decades have placed itself in a position it will dictate for other nations, neighboring countries specifically, who governs and who rules and the shape of government that they have. And that's why their interference in the affairs, the internal affairs of other nations has been for decade old, and especially Yemen, they have been dictating who's the president in Yemen since 1978.
Mm. And I mean, often they're very low key, but now they're out front. They have some coalition of 9 countries, Arabs and Pakistan, and they're bombing away.
Yes, they are bombing away, and it's very sad to see the State Department spokesperson, uh, Jin Saki, saying that the United States understand that Saudi Arabia has concerns about Yemen posing risks to security. So this was really an endorsement of an invasion, of an aggression that has no basis in international law, because that was not asked for by any authority in Yemen. The Saudi ambassador was, when speaking last week, used misleading language, saying that the Yemeni president has requested this attack. Let us be clear that under the so-called GCC initiative, the Gulf Cooperation Council initiative led by Saudi Arabia, the ex-president or former president of Yemen, Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi, his term expired in February 2014 in
Hmm.
according to this initiative. But apparently some countries and the United Nations is deliberately ignoring that. It's very clear. I've read the initiative, and it said his term has expired in 2014 because he was used as a temporary president until 2014, during which an election would have taken place. He did not carry on that promise because the Saudis didn't want to have elections in Saudi Arabia. This is another point where it's a stark contradiction to the Saudi system, where there is no election and constitution, when the ambassador of Saudi Arabia in Washington speaks that his country is trying to protect the constitution and the elections and legitimacy in Yemen. The Saudi monarchy does not have any elections or a constitution, nor really it does have any legitimacy coming from the people. So really, this is an unprovoked illegal war.
You,
And
you mentioned
yes.
you mentioned international law. Now, my understanding is that countries are supposed to go to the United Nations, get the Security Council permission before there's any kind of attack. I assume they haven't done that.
They have not done that, but the most concerning and disturbing matter here, although Yemen, the poorest Arab country, has been attacked by its neighbor unprovoked, the United Nations Security Council has not asked for an urgent meeting and to discuss the problem or to try to stop the war. I mean, this shows you the hypocrisy, in fact, the bigotry of the United Nations toward the people of Yemen. Because they are poor, go ahead and bomb them, and we do not really care. We are not even going to have a meeting to discuss really the problem. No one in the except Iran and Russia has asked for the war to stop. The rest of the world has remained silent on this, and this is a very, very, very bad sign for the international community when not a single country is asking for attacks to stop. And mind you, this is a one-way attack. The Yemenis have not yet fired back except trying to shoot down planes, and they have not tried to attack and kill Saudi soldiers across the
All
border.
right.
They can,
How
but they
about
haven't.
how about the U.S. role? It says it coordinates. In your understanding, what do you think the U.S. is doing in this attack?
From experience, I can tell you that the United States is active, meaning its plane and drones are flying over the conflict over Yemen. They are providing intelligence, the satellites, and the planes and AWACS planes, American AWACS plane, are providing tactical support to Saudi jets and GCC jets to bomb. But most interestingly here, I think this should have been an outrageous development that among those air forces that are bombing Yemen is the Air Force, the Sudanese Air Force, the same Air Force that has been involved in the murder and massacre of 300,000 people in Darfur. So really the United States Air Force and Central Command is providing logistical support, intelligence support to the Air Force of Sudan that has been involved, and the International Criminal Court has indicted the president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, for these crimes. Yet the United States is supporting and assisting an International Criminal Court individual in his unprovoked aggression against Yemen.
Incredible. Now, let me ask about Yemen. For our viewers, who are the Houthi?
Well, I think that is one of the problems in the media. It shows you that even Western media was supposed to be independent. They should have formed a title or a label for these people. The Houthi is a family. The leader of this movement, it used to be called the Believing Youth, and now they're called Ansarullah, the supporters of God. This movement really is completely a Yemeni movement that came through or from the decade-long marginalization by the Yemeni government supported by the Saudi. These are original Yemenis from the north. The Houthi is the name of the leader or leaders of the movement. This is a known family that has a long history in the leadership of the Zaydi community in Yemen. And in the past 7-8 years, they have emerged as the leaders of this social movement that really comes from marginalization. They were the target of Saudi religious oppression and dehumanization. The Ali Abdullah Saleh, when he was a Saudi ally supported by Saudi Arabia, waged six wars against them to try to really eliminate them, but they stood their ground and they were able to defeat the Yemeni army. In 2009, that attack, the Sixth War, was joined by the Saudi forces. Yet these people, few hundreds of them, ragtag individuals, poor people, have either, you see that these fighters, they don't even have shoes, but they have been living in the mountains, and they were able to hand Saudi Arabia, the Saudi army, really a decisive defeat, although it was supported at the time by American intelligence, satellite locations, and with the United States large munitions to bomb these people in the mountains. They were able to capture Saudi special forces, take Saudi equipment, and take Saudi territories. That war lasted for 90 days. So you're talking about a social movement here that has legitimate right for political power in Yemen. The Saudis dislike them because they happen to be independent from them, and they want to see them either dead or completely marginalized. And they
I
refer.
wanted to ask about one charge. The U.S. media simply asserts that the Houthi are supported by Iran. Now, what's the evidence around this? Is this support encouragement, money, training, weapons? Does it exist at all?
In 2009, there was no support or even contact with the Iranian side. Yet the Saudis waged a war of elimination against these people. First, they started helping the Yemeni government, Ali Abdullah Saleh's government, and then they joined in. Since then, we have to be honest, they have taken the opportunity to receive help from the outside, and this is it's not unusual in the Middle East. Ali Abdullah Saleh, the Yemeni government is supported by the Saudis, and many other groups are supporting by governments. There is usually very few groups that are not operating without regional support. So they did receive support from Qatar, for example, and then from Iran. But that doesn't mean that they are agents of the Iranians. They are really allying themselves with the power that will help them achieve their goals. And this is exactly what happened. And this is not a crime or an anomaly in the Middle East. Every group, every political group are supported by one government or another, and it doesn't mean that they are an agent to that government. So yes, since then, since 2009, they have been supported, but they remain Yemeni. Their agenda is Yemeni, and they are not as the Saudis or the ex-president of Yemen, Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi, speak with them as agents or stooges of the Iran. If the Houthi rebels or Ansarullah movement are stooges of Iran, then Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi is a stooge of Saudi Arabia.
Mm. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Sweden and Saudi Arabia. That's come into the news. The new Swedish government has been making criticism of Saudi human rights record,
Yeah.
especially treatment of women, and the Badawi case, the flogging, and so on, and has actually canceled the big weapons agreement with Saudi Arabia. What's the story about that?
Well, you can only applaud the Swedish government for their leadership on this issue here, because they are the first Western government to actually do something about it, to stand up by their publicly stated values, that they canceled the agreement, and they criticized publicly the Saudi human rights record, and that made the Saudis really go crazy. However, quickly the Saudis used basically blackmailing tactics against Sweden, having governments like the United Arab Emirates withdraw its ambassador, Bahrain and other Saudi allies criticizing Sweden, the country that the first Western country to recognize the Palestinian state and their right for an individual for a state. So regardless of this brave step by Sweden, the Saudis attacked Sweden and called their criticism a war on Islam. You know that the Saudis quickly tried to close this file by returning their ambassador and pretending that the Swedes have apologized, something they didn't do, because the Saudis need the support of the West in their war against Yemen, and that's why they closed this file just days before they launched their attack on Yemen.
So, what about this foreign minister in Sweden? I mean, it looked like she was being hung out to dry, that the EU wasn't saying anything in her support. I mean, are they holding strong at this point, Sweden?
I think they are still holding strong, and they came out and said that we did not apologize. It is very sad to see that an absolute monarchy, a despotic government like Saudi Arabia, is able to get other governments to support it against Sweden. Yet the European Union have not come out to the support of one of their members, a bright example of what Europe is. Sweden, their government, their values and their laws are exemplary, really, around the world. Yet the other European nations, and the United States for that matter, did not come to the defense of the Kingdom of Sweden. And this is a very shocking development, because it tells us that governments who are supposedly democratic and elected and represent the voices of the people are worried about one country, but they can take on countries like Russia and China. But when it comes to Saudi Arabia, they remain silent and they act as if they are the weakest party.
Mm-hmm. I have one last question, one last issue, human rights thing. As I was researching the story about Sweden, I come across a Jerusalem Post article about a woman in Saudi Arabia who had been raped by 7 people
Yes.
and got 90 lashes as her punishment. She appeals, and then she gets more lashes and 6 months in prison. Is this true? Does this happen?
There are so many cases in that country. It's very hard to verify a lot of the cases because, unlike the United States and other countries where you have free press that can go and without fear and investigate and have public record of crime and trials, in Saudi Arabia, there's nothing like that. So it's really hard, even for us people who are experienced and who were working on the Saudi affairs and are from that country. It's very hard for us to verify this story
Hmm.
either way. But such sentences are common. You see, for example, a few days ago, a man stabbed a woman in the neck in public in front of a cafe in Jeddah, and a young man on his skates ran after him and took a picture of him. What happens? This man who took a picture of a person who tried to kill a woman in public has been charged with violating privacy laws. And that shows you the Saudi court system. I wouldn't use the word justice system, is completely puzzling, and because it does not run on modern standards and it is not even codified. So it really has to do with these crazy laws, with the crazy attitudes of these judges. The Saudi court system is sectarian, obviously, is backward, and it acts like an apartheid system where one section of the society in Saudi Arabia is allowed to be judges, but no others. There are no women judges, for example, or no black judges, no Shia judges, or no ordinary Sunni judges, let alone secular judges. So this is, in American perspective, if the judges were all white Presbyterians, this is exactly how the system of court in Saudi Arabia operates. It's a very racist and apartheid system that does not operate on any written law and allows these judges, these Wahhabi judges, to decide very much what they like. Of course, in
Hmm.
accordance with the government, because the justice system is not independent. It really is subject to the ruling family and its desires.
I want to thank you very much for this
Thank
interview.
you so much. Thank you for having me.